Beautiful. Okay, welcome to the Worthy Woman podcast. Today we have a special guest. I'm totally fangirling over Bree, Miss Mindset. Thank you for being here with us, beautiful. And I just want to give a little bit of a intro to Bree, although she can do a much better job in a minute when I hand it over. So Bree is an educator. She's a podcaster. She's a writer. She's a mindset and business coach for women and works with women who are feeling stuck, stagnant, and trapped. So we can all relate to that. Definitely been there. What I love about Bree's work, and you have to go and check out her podcast, Miss Mindset, you will love it, is she talks about the energetics, human design, mindset, and the spiritual aspect of mindset. And I just love all the layers that that Bree brings to it. It's just really powerful, and I think you're going to love it too. So I just want to hand you over to Bree so Bree can give us a bit of introduction in case I've missed anything, because I'm sure that I have. And yeah, tell us a bit about you, Bree. I'd love to hear.
Oh, thank you for that introduction. Isn't it so funny when you're on the other side of the microphone and somebody's introducing you? You're like, oh, who's that chick? She's not that bad.
Oh,
So
I
thank
love
you.
that.
And we've been talking like for a few minutes before we hit record, and I'm excited for this conversation and the million directions it could go. I think
Yes.
we're on the same wavelength with a lot of the stuff that makes us passionate.
Yes.
So there's a long way and there's a short way, but I'll try to make it concise. My background and how I got to here. I think I always start with just saying I'm an educator, and the reason I say that is because my soul came here with like an insatiable thirst for knowledge and learning and understanding things on a really deep level. And so I think really I'm just a student of life, and I always will be. And yeah, because I'm so intrigued in so many things, and I really aim to always be better for myself and for people around me, and I'm always growing myself and learning. And because of that, like, I'm a student first and a teacher second, and I get so passionate, teaching the things that I've learned that have helped me in my life or helped my clients or helped my students. And so I'm very lucky in that way. It sort of started out with just being a professional uni student, and I, went straight from high school into uni and did 3 degrees and tried all these different things. And I never honestly could find my thing. I thought I had to find this one thing and tie it up in a pretty label. And that was really frustrating. It was a really frustrating few years of like, well, I've got $60,000 in uni debt. I've got this fancy piece of paper. I'm working in a law firm, and this isn't it, and I'll try something different, and then this isn't it. And I was always trying to fit a box, and it just never fit. I never fit into the box, and that always left me feeling really frustrated. And so I did what you do in those situations, and I just buggered off and did the eat, pray, love thing, went to India, traveled for a very long time, looked to find myself, and then realized I was there the whole time. It was very clear. It was very clear. So when I was in India, I was actually working in an orphanage, and it was it wasn't meant to happen this way, but I was working in an orphanage, and I had just been given an opportunity to take on a job. I'd finished uni and I'd been offered a job position as a corporate lawyer. And I thought, oh God, like, I need to go travel and sit with this. And I was in the orphanage, and I just had this day where I was teaching these little girls how to speak English, and their faces were lighting up, and I was surrounded by books and, like a big whiteboard. And I feel so at home in those places where there's learning and, learning and teaching. So I thought, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to study a little bit more, and then maybe I'll see if I like teaching back home. And yeah, the beautiful accident was that I ended up being a high school teacher for 5 years. And I think that was the most beautiful divine intervention that ever happened, because I observed in that time that I do have a real gift for teaching and for seeing people, for really seeing students, but I hated the education system, and I saw some real bad holes that were not helping children to thrive, not helping teachers to thrive, not setting us up as women later in life to really feel connected to ourselves, to know who we are, to know how to, deal with conflict and deal with saying a confident no, or knowing how to chase our curiosities or anything like that. We weren't taught emotional intelligence. We weren't taught how to manage our finances. Like we weren't taught anything that I felt was so important. And that became my mission. So very luckily, I decided to, it wasn't luck. I guess it was never luck. It's never luck. I don't believe in luck. But yeah, I made the decision to throw it all away and build a business, which was with the mission of teaching things we weren't taught at school. And that's where I am now.
Oh my God. Honestly, the whole time I was like, so much in that I just loved. And it just spoke directly to my soul. And one of the first things was I 100% feel the same as you. You're like a soul sister. Like
Mm.
it's definitely that I'm a student of life. I've never understood why we think learning just happens in a classroom.
Oh,
I've never understood that. Like I
yeah.
did school, like I said to you, I didn't love it, but I did the
Yeah.
thing, head down, bum up, just get
Yeah.
through. But I remember even being at school, just being like, this is such a waste of time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to use this. And like you said, like nothing, I literally left school and I didn't go into uni, but I had all these offers to go into uni.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to do it. It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. I feel like I'm wasting my time. Um, it just, and like you, I did the same thing. I was like, I need to go find myself. And I went, I did lots of different jobs and always felt like you, that they were divinely, there was gifts in them
Yeah.
where I was being shown my gifts by actually
Yeah.
living life and learning from life. And
Mm.
then we went traveling. I went traveling with my husband Adam. We met in high school, and we did like 3 months of Europe. And I know you've just come back from Europe. We were not game enough to be on bikes, though. We did backpack, but
Yeah.
we did that. And I remember when I was traveling around, like learning so much from life and like learning things about myself, like resilience and like how to come up with money if there wasn't any money, or,
Mm.
waiting for money to transfer to bank accounts. And, when you're in another country, and,
Yeah.
or like how to communicate when you can't speak the language. Like there was
Mm.
so much learning that just naturally happened. And
Yeah.
I felt like I was living. And I
Yeah.
just remember like, we didn't learn, I don't even think we talked about traveling at school, like that you could even travel and learn, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really, I found it just so disconnected from what life actually is. And I've heard other people describe it before. And like my mum used to say to me, oh, it's just, we all have to go to school to kind of fill our time, to fill that time. And I remember thinking from a young age, why are we here to
Oh.
fill time?
Oh.
Are we literally all here just to fill time? Like, and I
Oh.
know you've spoke about this before, like we're not here to just pay bills, buy a
No.
house, fill up a car, fill time. Like we've literally come here to do something, to actually make a change, to make an impact. But
Mm.
because of the way the world is with all these systems, and like what you said about the school system just totally spoke to me, because
Mm.
I remember as a student thinking, this is so broken. This system is
Yeah.
so broken. Like it's, I could get a great result on exams. I did English lit, loved it. And I did so well. I could do really well. But I knew that didn't really mean anything. It just meant
Mm.
that I passed that thing and that's it,
Yeah, it's
and
heartbreaking. And it's
oh,
so heartbreaking. You're a learner and a student of life, and that's beautiful. And the saddest thing I think that I've witnessed is watching how the education system being so irrelevant and so
mm,
outdated, and the kids are smart, man. Like
yeah,
kids are so smart. We knew that it was irrelevant. They know it's irrelevant, way more irrelevant now than ever
ever.
before.
Yes.
Ever before. Like, I've got students who these days are making 10 times more than their teachers ever were by being influencers,
Yes.
beauty influencers, and all sorts. And they weren't being guided in that direction. They were being
No.
told to stop daydreaming. And I think,
Yeah.
hold on, if we've got a system that teaches kids that learning is boring and
Yeah.
that learning is something that hopefully will be over soon, we're
Oh,
not going to set anyone up for a full life. And that's what really grinded my gears. I thought, I can see students coming in year 7. I was a high school teacher, so I'd see them come in year 7 and they were still a little bit excited to be there, still a little bit like, oh, we've got lockers and we've got textbooks and it's like all a bit exciting. By year 8, they were over it and they were burnt out and they were bored and they were like, what are we doing here? And I thought, your life, the learning hasn't even begun. We're meant to teach people that to love learning and to love failing
Yes.
and to love giving things a go and to love like, and so now I've got clients who are 30, 40, 50, 60, and they always say to me, Breanna, where were you when I was at school? And they're only just now deciding to learn a bit about themselves and to give life a real crack
Oh,
because, they lost that spark so many years ago. And that to me is not good enough. And we need to do better.
no.
We just need to do better.
That gives me goosebumps
Mm.
because honestly, when I hear people say things, I don't know if you've heard this before, like they'll say, oh, well, I went through school and I turned out fine. I'm like, why do we think that that is a good enough reason to
Mm.
continue a system or a way
Mm.
of doing anything that
Mm.
is not getting us the result we need? Because the truth is, fine means fucked. Fine means everything's effed. Let's be
Yes.
honest. If someone says to you, how are you going? You're like,
I'm
fine.
fine.
You
Yeah.
go up in octaves, but, because you're
Totally.
freaking out. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm emotionally burnt out. I'm a wreck. Like nothing's good. And I don't even know what to say. And
Mm.
that's the truth of fine. And like we both see on the other side. And I went through it myself several times through my life where I'm like, okay, I've been through school and I've done all these things, but I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know
Mm.
how to ask for what I want. I was a people
Mm.
pleaser and a perfectionist. Like, and there's nothing fine about that. That makes life
Mm.
really hard to live. And it's so sad, like you said, to then be in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and only then be thinking, actually, I can do it another way. I can
Yeah.
learn another way. And it doesn't mean I'm broken. It doesn't mean I'm wrong just because I didn't fit into that system. And I know I
Mm.
shared with you, I was so excited when I reached out to you. And, you said that your why was because the education system is broken. And it came, that message, that confirmation came when I needed it the most because
Mm.
I've recently pulled my son out of mainstream school. He was in
Mm.
a public school, but a independent public school. And
Yeah.
it's, nature play. We did all the research. We went to all the
Yeah.
schools and
Yeah.
found the one with the least pressure, which seemed to be more, natural
Mm.
learning. Um, and kindy was okay. We were
Mm.
like, okay, kindy's okay. And he did, he seemed to be okay with it. But
Yeah.
I even in kindy said to the teacher, my son is like one of the youngest because he wasn't 5 till May,
Oh, yeah.
end of
Yeah.
May. So,
Yeah.
I'd read Maggie Dent's books, I'd read all them, and I was
Love
very
her.
aware that, I love her too. And I was like, I think he might need to start school later, and I'm okay with that. But the system's not okay with that. They were like, well, there's not really an option for that. And I was like, okay, so then what do we have to do? And in kindy, I said, oh, can I hold him back? They said, well, you'd have to go to all these psych appointments, basically all these hoops would have to jump through, which I didn't think would be helpful for him either.
Mm.
To go through that process when nothing was wrong. I was
Mm.
just, I was just
Yeah.
like listening to him and that
Mm.
like developmentally he's not quite ready and that's
Yeah.
okay. But in
Yeah.
the system, that's not okay. And
Mm.
that was the response I got. And I said, okay, then, well, we'll just support him at home and then we'll see how he goes in pre-primary. And the teacher literally turned around to me and said at the end of kindy, the pre-primary teachers are going to eat them alive. That was her exact words. And I'm a new mum, first time
Oh,
going through school. And I just
yeah.
looked at her and I said,
What do you
you
mean?
don't you don't really mean that. Like she said, oh, well, it's just the expectations in pre-primary are
Mm.
next level. And she
Yeah.
started to list off all
Yeah.
these things, like count to 20, do this, da, da, da. And I was like, okay, so if we can't do those things, what does that mean? And she just basically said, well, you have to get to that point. It's
Yeah.
just like push through, make
It
it happen.
is. Yeah.
And
And
I
there is
was
no
like,
stopping for no one in the
oh
curriculum.
my
It's
God,
like, yeah.
I had no idea. I mean, obviously I went
Yeah.
through school, but I was the child going through
Yeah.
school. So I
Yeah.
didn't really
Yeah.
observe that layer of it. And then as the parent, observing my child go through it
Mm.
and trying to support them through it and trying to navigate like, okay, some of it is resilience building. Some of it
Mm.
you need to fail and learn. And I
Yeah.
want you to do that. But then some of it is just life having unrealistic, well, not even life, the system having
Mm.
unrealistic expectations of you because you're a 5-year-old. Um,
Oh, oh
and
my goodness.
I know. And then, so we went into pre primary, we were doing pre primary, obviously with COVID, did not make it it really has made it hard for kids. Like, I couldn't come into the classroom till I think midway through the second term. I didn't know what was going on in the classroom. So I literally didn't know where he was up to until nearly the end of second term. I didn't even feel connected to the teacher. I remember saying to her, I just don't feel connected to you. And if I don't feel connected, then neither does my son. Like, I know we're connecting through these apps and everything that we have to use now, but I'd really like to see you, and she felt the same. Like, the teachers felt the same. It was, I remember going in and saying to them, like, this is not me against you. Like, we're on the same team. You're stressed. I can see you're stressed. I'm stressed. And so is my son. So are all those kids, The system's not working for any of us.
No.
And, so we push through because that's what everyone kept telling us to do, push through, push through. And then it got to the point where I just said to my husband, this doesn't feel right. This is pre-primary. Why do I feel stressed out and burnt out about pre-primary? And if I do, then surely Avon is too. And he was showing resilience, which was great. And we were really proud of that. But emotionally, I could see that he was starting to shut down a bit and disassociate. And that was what scared me the most. Like, I remember saying to the teachers, they said he wasn't progressing. And I said, okay, well, tell me a bit more about that. So they did. And then I said, okay, well, what if I'm okay with that he's not ticking those boxes? Is that okay? Because I'm okay with that. And they basically said, that's really great, but actually, no, it's not okay, because these are the boxes we have to tick and we need to get to. So, and then I ended up having to go see the principal, and I talked to him about it. He said the same thing. Basically, this is the system. If he doesn't get to this point by this time, statistically, it shows that he won't then get to the next point. And I remember sitting there thinking, this just doesn't make sense to me. We're talking about pre-primary. Like, I had to keep saying that to myself. Like, is pre-primary really meant to be like this? And I reached out to like a few other mums, and they were like, honestly, the difference between kindy and pre-primary is huge. It's like 2 years. It's like they've jumped 2 years. And I just remember saying to my husband, I didn't sign up for this. And our son didn't sign up for this. And when he started to say, I hate my teacher, I hate my school, like, I could kind of deal with that. But then when I hate learning came, I was like, no way. I said, we are out. We are out of the system. I don't care what it takes. He cannot hate learning. Like, I'm sending him there to, all I want him to do is love learning and just, be happy enough in that environment, feel safe to then just be open to learning. But, it already was just not happening. And, so I believe, like you, I'm just so passionate about, it doesn't have to be that way. And let's keep questioning it. It shouldn't be that way. And like I said, and you will know, it's not working for the teachers either.
No, and it's so sad. As you were talking, I just thought, oh my gosh, sometimes I really miss, like, the thing is, yes, I definitely was, I am where I need to be 100%. I'm teaching in a very different way now. I still teach every single day inside of my business, but it was half of that and half of me thinking, I'm not thriving in this system. And the sad part is, and I'm not saying this to blow my own horn by any means, but I was a bloody good teacher, meaning I cared about every student so much. Like, my recess and lunch was a revolving door of students coming in to talk about life. And that was the greatest privilege I ever had. And the saddest thing is, especially since COVID, the kids who need the good teachers the most, like, the teachers are all leaving because they're falling. The teachers are not, it's not working for anyone. And here we've got these students who they need the teachers that care. They really do. But the teachers who care, they're burning out. They're just burning out. And I've written about this for a lot of like, I write for Mamma Mia, and
I've read so many of them because I was like, yes. If you haven't read them, check out the articles, because I feel for these women. Like, so many of his teachers, I could tell they cared. They were coming up with ideas all the time, and they were agreeing with me, and I could see them like when I was saying like, is it okay if he doesn't progress? I knew to them it was actually okay.
Oh, yeah.
But, it to them inside, but because
we've got meetings where we've got to go answer to our
Exactly.
superiors, and those superiors, like I've got clients now who are principals, because I'm helping principals now to deal with their own burnout and staff issues.
So needed.
And it's like, it's just, the teacher doesn't care. The teacher doesn't care, except they've got a system that is going, well, why aren't your students getting this benchmark and la, la, la. And you're like, excuse me, I can tell you exactly why my students not. Did you know that their parents have just broken up? Did you know that this kid's mum has cancer? Did you know? Don't talk to me about your auto-generated bloody statistics on my kids. I know my kids. And I know when they're ready, I will get them there. And if they don't get there, that's okay. But we've overcorrected, and there's too much of this statistics and apps and like connecting through and at the end of the day, we've taken so much power away from parents. Know their children.
Yes.
And teachers
know
their children. You don't trust me, you don't choose teaching for the money.
Yeah,
choose because it's not that great. You work really, really hard.
Yeah, or the conditions or anything. You teach it, you choosing it because you love it. Like same as nurses, same as so many things, And that's what broke my heart as well. I was like, we worked with the teachers and the school as much as we could, but then I realized this is as far as the system will let us go. It's not the people's fault. It's that the system doesn't support the people. It's all about, like you said, the theory of it or the statistics of it, not the actual human connection, not the person behind it. And we've lost that. We've literally outsourced that personal connection. You know, I'm like, outsource everything else. Don't outsource human connection. Don't outsource that personal thing that only a teacher who cares can bring.
It's so true.
Like, what have we done?
And it's also really heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking for me to see. We've also really, at the cost of trying to get literacy and numeracy and sciences, and like there's a place for everything. There's a place for learning, but we've really stifled creativity. And I believe, especially for children, but oh man, my biggest obstacle with working with women is to just dare them to dream again.
Yes.
Because it's like, you haven't used your imagination for anything positive for so many years that when I say, if you could have anything, like if I was a genie in a bottle and you could just use your imagination, just pretend, it's like we've stifled creativity to the point where it's hard for women to come back to themselves and go, well, let me just use my imagination for a second and just pretend that life could be different. That if life could be different, how might it look?
Yes.
And it's like creativity is such an important part of all of us in expressing ourselves. And when you see students being told, stop daydreaming, or there's no room there's no room. I had so many students that loved, writing poetry or creative writing. And now it's like, well, I'm going to assess you on how good your creativity really is. And it's like, oh, way to take the fun away for them. Like, it's really, there's room for improvement. And, if you can't beat it, create something new, which is what I did. I'm literally in the process of creating a school at the moment, which teaches mind.
When I saw that post about mind school is coming, I was like, oh yes, it's so needed. And I loved how you talked about creativity, because honestly, I can relate to that. I feel like as an adult, I've had to give myself permission to access creativity again.
I
know, and like you said, be creative just for the sake of being creative. Like, let go of the end goal. Like, now I remember I said that to my husband recently, like, and the masculine is so like that they are doing everything for a goal. And even for men, that can be tiring. Like I said to my husband one day, do you ever just do something because it feels good, or just like to, I don't know, like see what might happen? And he was like, no. I was like, really? Wow. I was like, that must be really exhausting, because like, I know for me, I like, especially having kids where there's so many things you just have to do every day. It can get pretty monotonous and boring. just bringing the invitation of like, just, I don't know where this is going to lead, and I'm just going to give this a go and see what happens, just bring some life and joy and energy to
Yeah.
my actual life and to me. And I think so many people have got just so stuck on the result, just like the school system, because all of our systems are just about getting to an
Outcomes.
end, just an outcome, get to that
Yeah.
end place. And then you get there and it's like I finished school and I was like, what now? Like,
Is that it?
is that it? Yeah, literally. Like nothing amazing happened. No one even, I remember thinking, no one even asked me what I got. No one
No.
cared. No one,
No.
like, even when I went for a job, they're like, yeah, whatever. Don't. So tell me about you. What are your personality traits? What are your strengths? I was like, oh, okay. Where do I find those? Like,
I know, somebody give me a test for these, because and we don't even know how to access it, because we've been
no.
taught that it's in a test where we get to pass or not. And it's so, as you were talking, I was just thinking that's actually so true. I have this fancy law degree, and again, it was a system that told me that that was the more, prestigious thing to do, even though I was
Yes.
such a creative. Like, really, I should have, and I did a lot of drama, musical theater, like
Yep. So did
writing,
I. Yep.
everything creative. And then it was like, oh, but you're too smart. Like, your grades
Oh,
you've got to do law or teaching.
yeah.
Not teaching, because that was again something that they said was too low. That was below my grades. And
Oh,
it's like, grades don't mean
mean
anything.
anything.
They don't mean anything. And it's so interesting, that whole like, yeah, we've given our power away to so many of these systems.
Mm.
And something else, as you were talking, I was thinking another thing about like giving ourselves permission to just be creative. That's when our real magic comes to us. Like,
Yes.
I always say to my clients, when they can't find clarity, or they're really trying to figure out the answer to some problem in their life, or there's just, they're mulling over something, I say to them, like, answers come in the stillness, but we
Mm.
don't have stillness. When I'm playing piano, when I'm going for a
Oh,
bike ride, when I'm singing, that's something that I've been doing again recently. It's like, that's when you get the drop-ins. That's when you get
mm.
to know who you are. You get this moment. It's like, you know, you don't have the space to receive answers, to receive inspiration, to receive creative, to receive anything when you are
Mm.
doing, 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 doing.
Oh,
There's no space. So we have to create space for the answers to come.
oh,
And we don't.
we don't. And I totally feel that. And I work with women as well. And that's the biggest thing. They're
Mm,
like, they just like, what can I do? How can I do more? I'm like, no, no, no.
take it
Beautiful.
away. Yeah.
You don't need to do more. You need to do less and you need
Yeah.
to be more. And I get it, because I was addicted to the doing too, because we're like
Yeah.
patted on the head.
Mm,
Like, literally as a mother, like the selfless mum is rewarded, not the
yeah.
mum who puts herself first, who goes to the gym, who like, puts her kids in daycare so she can have a day to get clear. No
Yeah.
one celebrates that mum. I
Oh,
celebrate that mum now. I'm
yeah. I
like,
love that,
high
mum.
five, sister. Like,
That is
that's
my mum
me.
goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mum
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
Mum goals is look after yourself so you can actually look
Yes.
after your little people. Like, but
Yes.
like I wasn't shown that a lot.
Mm,
Like, this is a new generational shift where women are
mm.
like, okay, they question whether they're a good person or a good mum if they're not literally doing everything for everybody all of the
Mm,
time. And they're not even on the list. They're not even last. They're not even on the list, and they're doing all the things and they feel so
mm.
empty. And I'm like,
Yeah.
honey,
Yeah.
how can you possibly, of course you're empty. Like, where
Yeah.
are you? There's no
Yeah.
you in this. And the thing is,
Yeah.
without you, there is no life. There is no
Mm,
kids to support. There is no
mm,
family to look after. That,
mm,
you must look after you. And
mm.
I had to have this massive mindset shift and like form a new identity to be okay with
Mm.
doing things like starting my own podcast and sitting in the sun. Like, it was ridiculous, drinking a hot tea. I mean, so ridiculous. The amount of
Yeah.
women who are like, oh no, I'll just drink my tea cold. Like, I like it cold. No, we don't. No, we
No
don't.
lies.
Lies. Like, why do we do that
Yeah.
to ourselves? We don't need to do that. And it starts
Mm,
with, like you said, breaking up with doing, being okay with being. And,
mm.
at first it is a bit uncomfortable. And I want to talk a bit about, I love that you brought this up, that like when you said you either, change the system or you leave it. And this is something that I've always kind of done a bit like you. Like, I haven't followed the system. I've And it's been hard. Like
Mm,
sometimes I've felt like like the black sheep of the family. I'm the only
yeah.
one that traveled. I'm the only one that finished school. I'm
Yeah.
the only one that literally got engaged and then moved states and then came back,
Yeah.
then got married and then went away again. Like I'm the only one that's kind of done those things, the only
Mm,
one to pull my son out and decide to homeschool.
yeah.
And it's interesting when I started to share with people, like I said to you, I know in my heart that that decision was right, but I was nervous, and not
Mm,
because of like, can I do it? Because I'm a willing learner. So I know
yeah.
if I can learn, then I can teach.
Mhm.
But more so from a point of view, like when I said to people, I'm going to start homeschooling, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, okay.
What?
And then more people like, wow, you're really brave. I
Mm,
was like, okay. And, you know, and what I had to realize is none of those people had actually homeschooled,
mm,
none of them. And this is what I think you have to like filter, like
yes,
get advice from people who are in your arena. Like
totally.
if they're not in the arena, just that's their fear, their perception, and that's
Mm,
okay,
mm,
but don't take it on board. And this is what I've found anytime I've broken away from the system or decided to do things differently,
mm,
this comes up. Like everybody else's fears, you know, who are not in the arena,
mm.
but they tend to have the loudest opinions of
Yes.
like what you're doing. And they seem to be the most confident to share with you that what you're doing is not the right thing to do. And so I know you've done this a lot throughout your life and your journey. How
Mm.
have you dealt with that? How do you know, how do you find breaking up with the system? And I mean, I love that you're a teacher and you now speak openly about the holes in the teaching, you know, in the teaching system, in the school system. I
Mm,
love that. I really
mm,
respect that, you know, and it
mm,
comes from a place of passion. Like I can feel that and deep caring, you know.
mm.
Um, but yeah, how did you find the courage and the confidence to, you know, kind of choose a different way and just be
Mm.
okay with it?
I actually think like, and I've thought about this a lot because I have shifted and changed a lot, you know, and it does take a certain amount of courage, I think, to leave something that's, you know, society ticked and approved, and there's all this, you know, prestige and ego. It's really ego
Yeah.
that you can receive from it. But to me, it's more courageous. Like to me, the fear of staying the same and knowing that in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I'm going to feel this amount of dissatisfaction and frustration. That to
Mm.
me is far scarier than putting myself out there and being a little different and, you know, taking some chances. And I was so blessed. I was raised by, like, my dad was a sports coach, and because of that, I was just raised with this sense of like, give it a crack, you'll be right. You
Yeah.
know, like sometimes we'd train so hard and lose the grand final, or like just, you know, these things that were like little failures, which I love. I'm so glad. And I get that's another side tangent, but I really hate that the system has taken away opportunities for kids to learn that it's okay to not be the best at everything. And, you know, I got so many opportunities as a little one to fail, and I don't even use that word, but like to make
Yeah.
mistakes and to go, that's cool. You
Yeah.
can just, all that means is that we can tweak your training, or that you could do it a little bit differently, or this or that. So I've never been afraid of failing. To
Mm.
me, failing is staying unhappy. That is my ultimate failure. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm unhappy, I will change something. And to me, I could only ever fail if I just accepted dissatisfaction. That's not cool to me. But also, I think over time, because you're right, it is the people who care about you the most, and it is,
Yes.
they love you the most, so they want to protect you. And they, you know, I remember I left teaching. I didn't even wait until the end of the year, which is what you're meant to do as a teacher. You're meant to wait it out, you know,
Yeah.
stay till the end of the year. But I was miserable. And when my
Yeah.
principal said to me, like, can you just get to term 4? I was like, no, I am not being unhappy for one more day. I just will not do this. This is my notice. I'm leaving at the end of term 2. And that's like pretty unheard of. And, you know, it was the middle of COVID, schools had locked down, people were talking about all of this doom and gloom that was coming. And I was like, doom and gloom to me is waking up and not wanting to be in the situation I'm in. That is doom and gloom. And so I had all these people who love me very, very, very much, who were like, oh, Breanna, are you sure? Like, it's a very scary time. And you just got a promotion. It's a private school. The kids love you. Like, what are you doing? And those people, I know that they were coming from such a good place. And so I had to just, I honestly, lovingly had to retreat a little bit. And I
Mhm.
became very protective of my goals and my ambitions. And I became very protective of who I shared it with. And I
Yes.
had to find the people, like I would go and find a business coach to share it with, or I would
Yes.
find people in, mentors who had already done a similar thing, and I would share with them. But in that growth zone, and I talk about that with clients, like when you're going into a growth zone is when you are the most vulnerable, because
Yes.
you're already dealing with all of the unknowns yourself. And when somebody just says one little thing, if you're not aware of it, it will spiral you. So when I'm aware that I'm in a growth zone, I kind of hold my dreams very tightly, and I'm very conscious of who I share it with.
Yes.
But then the best part about it has been, like, I remember the first time I started dropping money like it was, I was getting business coaches, spiritual coaches, mentors, like dropping money like I was just doing another degree. Cause what's another degree in my mind? Like, except
Yes.
this isn't society approved, right? When I go and
Yes.
get a $50,000 law degree, nobody batters an eyelid. But
Yes.
go get a $15,000 business coach where you will get returns, and everyone thinks you've gone batshit
Oh,
crazy.
God,
And
I
it's
know. I've never
what?
understood that because, like you, I invest in myself
Mhm.
100% because
Mhm.
that's the thing that's
Shortcuts.
going to return the most.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I remember saying to someone, like, okay, so do you invest in yourself? And they were like, well, what does that mean? I was like, what does that mean?
Mm.
Like you literally you fill up your car, like you buy all this furniture for your house, like you need to invest in you. Like you
Yeah.
100% need to invest in you. You're worthy of it. The
Mm.
only way you can grow is if you learn something new. And
Mhm.
exactly what you said, I definitely had to retreat. I stopped telling people I was
Yeah.
homeschooling because, like you said, the response made like planted seeds of doubt, and I
Mhm.
was like, I don't need to doubt this. I know this is right. And I loved how you said you left early because we're not doing term 4, and everyone was like, just push through. I was like, no, I
Why?
feel the same as you. I was like,
Yeah.
if I'm already stressed, if I'm already dreading term 4 before it even starts, that's the answer. That's
Mm.
the answer. The answer isn't push through. The answer is this isn't right. Like
Yeah.
make a decision and make a change. And I love that you did the same. And it's just, I have the same fear. I would much rather go after things, give them a try. I literally
Mm.
believe as long as I try, I can't fail.
Exactly.
I'm like,
Exactly.
I literally, if I try, I
Mm.
can't fail. But if I'm not willing to even try, then I'm failing
Mm.
because nothing can change. Like nothing can change if I don't make a new decision or I don't decide to change. And that to
Mm.
me is so much scarier. Like you, I just think, why wouldn't you give it a go? Like
I know. It's
you
your
literally
life that you're
can't
dealing
lose.
with. It's life. I think we had quite a few wake up calls, and I spend a lot of time actually like just thinking about death. And that sounds
Mm,
really morbid,
I think
but
that's important.
it's such a good wake up call. Like we all live as though we're going, like we bury our head in the sand, like we're gonna, that's one day off. But life is moving so fast, and
So
it's so
fast.
precious. And we've got my fiance, his one of his best mates is currently he's been told he has about 1 or 2 months left to live. And
Oh,
we it's been the most horrible and beautiful, like it's just that polarity, right? Like so much love and so much heartache all in
mm,
one. And we've spent so much time talking about the meaning, like what is this all for? One day, and we don't know when. We pretend
mm.
it's going to be when we're 90, but for some of us, like,
It's
it's
not.
not a given. It's just not. And one day, that is the only certainty in this life, is that we come in and we are all dying, and we don't know how, but we know we're going to die. So what are you going to think about on your deathbed? Like, what are you
Mm,
going to think about? Because if you sat in a job that you hated, or you stayed in a relationship that was lukewarm and it
mm,
didn't actually make you feel good, if you did that for 50 years and then got to the end of your days and looked back over your life, what are you going to think? Like,
yeah. Oh,
what that is a life full of regret. And if you only get one, wouldn't you rather try some things? Wouldn't you rather go out and experiment with all of the things that are out there for life? Like we're so blessed, this friend of ours, he's having some beautiful conversations with my fiance, and he said, mate, like, I mean, obviously he's got little kids, so there's nothing that, you can't positive your mindset your way out of that at all. But he said, I have no regrets. I married the love of my life. I love he loves his job. He loved, like, there's no regrets. And he's, he's young. And on the flip side, I've got an elderly grandparent who is he's into his 80s, and his life is just full of should haves. He's so
Mm,
filled of regret, and it's eating him alive. And I almost think, well, what, that I know what I'd prefer. I know that I
yeah.
would prefer to get to the end of my days and go, you know what? I wouldn't do anything differently because I gave life a crack.
Oh man, that's just bringing up all the emotions for me.
Yeah.
I being a mom of young kids, like
Mm,
I cannot imagine what that must be like. But at the same time, I do allow myself to go there. I do
mm,
allow myself to imagine
mm.
that because,
Yeah.
like you, I used to work in like as a carer, like in aged care. So I got to speak to a lot of
Mm.
elderly people, and they shared a lot of their wisdom.
Oh, they're
And
incredible.
I loved
Mm,
seeing, like you said, the difference between those that actually lived their lives full out, gave it all a crack, and
mm,
those that didn't. And
mm.
that feeling, you could see it in them. And, you could hear it, you could see it. Like it was so in the energy. You knew just by walking in the room, the ones that were full of regret. You just knew.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
it's
And it
so
eats up your
heavy.
body. It's not good
It's
for your
so heavy.
body. It's so heavy.
It's
And
it's so heavy and so sad because it doesn't have to be that way. Like if we
mm,
have the courage to just give it a go. I love that book. You've probably read it, The Five
top
Regrets of
five
the
regrets
Dying.
of the
Love that
dying.
book. I
Oh, it's
literally
my
keep
favorite.
same.
Yeah.
I keep it
Yeah.
next to my bed, and
Yeah.
anytime I get like a bit
In a
grumpy with
funk.
life or what,
Yeah.
I just read that and I'm like, Aston, honestly, you've been given a gift here. Like,
Yes.
and I believe as human beings, we're all here to help each other on a soul level, to
Mm,
to help each other remember what we've forgotten. Because it's
yes.
like we all knew when we got here, then we got amnesia, and now we're all trying to remember. And I don't think we have to remember on our own. I think we can
Yeah.
work with coaches, we can have
Mm,
friends, we can get in
yeah.
communities, like we can all speak our truth and share our gift. And
Mm,
like yours is education. I could feel it from the moment I
mm,
connected with you.
mm,
And when you bring that to the table, it
mm,
helps somebody else remember something that they've forgotten, that they
mm,
need to remember in this lifetime. And
mm.
it's not some of us have that gift, all of us have that gift.
Yeah.
We all have something we need to share. And hearing you talk about that conversation between your fiance and his friend, and I just
Mm,
think that man is
mm.
leaving a legacy. He's
Really
already
is.
left a legacy. Like it's
Yeah.
making me emotional. That is a legacy.
Mm,
Our legacy is how many lives we touch and how we love
mm,
them. And
mm.
even in his, last months, he's leaving a legacy with every
Yeah.
conversation, with how he's connecting, with what he's sharing. And I'm like, God, I have so much respect for those human beings. I'm like, and that's all of us. We
Mm,
all have that ability to be that type of human being, and we need
yeah.
more of it. Like the
Yeah.
world is screaming for it. It's like
Mm,
our kids need it. The world needs it. We
mm.
need that so badly. And man, that's just so beautiful
Yeah.
and I think so powerful. And I'm just I think that is just such a powerful message to really just not live with regrets, to make
Yeah.
decisions, and to do the thing, give it a crack. Like I love how you said that. Just
And
just give it
it's,
a crack.
yeah, when you do give it a crack, like I'm sure you've had the same experience. The people who are initially were probably a little bit afraid or projected their fears onto you. I've found I actually had such a great moment last week. So when I did a lot of, like, I had my first mentor was Bob Proctor. I don't know if you
Oh,
know
I love
him, but
him. I
yeah,
love
he's
him.
like the godfather of woo
Yes.
woo,
Yep.
essentially. And
Yep.
me being me, I actually at the time was very not open to it. Like I was very analytical. I have my degrees and I like to see the studies and la 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 la. And
Yes.
so I was very much like I had grown up in a Catholic environment and rejected all of it. So to have this mentor who was like the godfather of spirituality, manifestation, and essentially I came to realize it was very much mindset.
Yes.
Um, Really diving into that and spending a lot of money on that. My family thought that I had, I don't know,
Literally gone
smoked
crazy.
some, yeah,
Yep.
gone crazy, like gone off the bat. And I remember them just being like, "You spent what? And what is it? And what do you get? And what?" And I started being like, "No, guys, everything is energy, and you just have to attract." Like I started going all
Yeah.
woo woo, and it was so funny because my brother and my dad were very like, okay, this is very not their thing. And just a few weeks ago, my brother rang me right before I had a coaching call with my students. And he was like, "Hey, are you free?" And I'm like, "Oh, look, I'm about to get on a call. What's up?" He's like, "Just, when I do my affirmations at night, do you think I should use theta brainwaves or delta brainwaves?" And I was like,
Oh, I
like,
love
I
that.
love that when you don't try to, and
Yes.
I never force anything down anyone's throat. I'm not here to change anyone.
No.
That's just not here. I'm not there for that. It's not what I'm here to do. I'm not going to try and change anyone.
And we
And so
actually can't, can we?
you
Like
can't.
but I think that's the hardest thing for like someone like you who's an educator. You love to share, you want to help. Like I'm a deep carer. I care
Mm,
deeply. And
mm.
sometimes I find that challenging. I have to
Yeah,
be
you want to
like,
jump
no,
in.
Aston, like,
Mm,
unless they ask for the help, like,
yes.
on. Like,
Yeah, it's very hard.
so hard because you
Yeah.
care so deeply. It's no part of me thinks they're broken. No part of me thinks
No.
I am or anybody is.
Mm,
Like I said, I believe we're all here to help each other. But I love what you said that if you do just be the change,
mm-hmm.
and just show up differently. And then they start to see it's interesting how they come back and they're like, oh, what's that thing you were talking
What are
about? That
you doing?
everything's
Something's
energy.
working.
What was that?
Yeah.
Was it something like that? And then, and I love that you humbly receive that. I always like to humbly receive that. I don't need to go, I'm right, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to do that. Just in them coming back is such a beautiful full circle, like
Mm,
healing moment for everybody because it's also not nice to be on the receiving end of, I know they all cared about you, they were worried about you, and they're just projecting fear, but that can be hard as well. Like I've
mm.
spent so much money on retreats and all these things, gone away to these things. As part of our honeymoon, we went on a retreat. People were
Love
like, what
it.
the hell's wrong with you guys? We did like
Love it.
colonics.
Yes.
We fasted. They were like,
Yes.
what is wrong with you guys?
Sounds perfect.
We also swam in waterfalls, balance.
Yeah.
We did it all.
Yeah.
But we were serious about setting ourselves up, to
I love it.
live the life that we wanted to live. And even with that, we still then had to do more work because
Mm,
life happens and
mm,
you take this bit and then you've got to live that bit and learn from this. And
mm.
it's all feedback, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful when I know one retreat we came back and I remember like a family member saying like, wow, whatever it was, like you guys, you do look different. You look and feel different. And, and they were a bit standoffish, but at the same time, they were like, we can see that something's happened. Like it's worked,
Yes. It's
Um,
infectious. And,
yes.
that's why if everybody, I love that quote or that saying. I don't even know who said it, but, happy people heal people and hurt
Yes.
people hurt people. And I
Yes.
just think if
Yes.
we all just worked on, that quote selfishness of filling our cups and doing what we're
Yes.
here, like doing what we're here to do and following our curiosities and giving ourselves permissions to find our own happiness.
Mm.
If we all did that, the world would be such a beautiful place. And it
Oh.
really comes back to everybody just doing their own stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, heal
Mm,
yourself so that you can heal each
mm,
other. Like that's how
yeah.
I love to see it. And I think too many people stop at the hurt people, as if full stop, there's
Yeah.
no way to move forward. I'm like, no, 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 there's not a full stop there.
Yeah.
We can complete that sentence and we can
Yeah.
do the healing.
Yeah.
And some of us, I think, are here to do that healing for like our
Mm,
lineage, for
yes.
our feminine line, or,
Mm.
there's some wounding that we need to
Oh,
heal. And, we all have it. Like,
oh yeah.
everyone has some trauma. Everybody has some
Mm,
wound that needs healing, and that's okay. What's not
mm,
okay is that we just keep putting band-aids on it and ignoring it and not
mm,
dealing with it. And then,
mm.
like I'm a mom, I was just like, I have a responsibility to
Oh
work on
yeah.
my shit
Yeah.
because otherwise my shit becomes their shit.
Oh
And
yeah.
like that's not good enough.
Yeah.
I always say to my husband, we're going to work on our shit so they don't have the same shit. They'll have other shit,
Different shit. Yeah.
and that's okay. That's called
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah.
Like we're not perfect. They're not going to get perfect, but I
Yeah.
need to at least see that they're not working through the same thing that we were working through, because
Yeah.
otherwise we haven't done our job in the cycle of evolution,
Totally.
like,
Yeah.
and I think too many people with that whole, well, I turned out fine thing completely miss this part. And I'm like, school was not where education stopped. When,
Mm,
like, because for so many people, it was either school or uni, and then that's it. Okay, my education, my learning is now finished. I'm now just going to live my life. I'm just like, no, that sends the complete wrong message. Not wrong,
mm,
but opposite. That's opposite of what we
mm.
need. The learning is
Yeah.
just beginning.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Because it's like it goes hand in hand. Like if you believe that your learning stops at a certain point and you are done, like finished, finito, I'm done learning, that's actually a fixed mindset. And
Totally.
a fixed mindset compared to a growth mindset is literally the number one thing I'll look for. If I'm looking at, if I'm working with a client and I can see a fixed mindset, I'm like, we ain't growing.
This isn't going to work.
This ain't going to work. We're going to have to figure out how to get you into a growth mindset.
Yes.
And the very belief that education stops is a fixed mindset, which stops people from growing, and no one's going to achieve their potential that way. So the whole, to circle back to how we started, it's just that there's a lot of systems that could do with improvement. And that's why, it's good to have these conversations because
it is. And I love to see all the different perspectives as well. Like I'd love to see like a podcast, and maybe you'll end up doing one of like a teacher, a mum, a principal, get that whole round table happening. And but from a place of like our common goal is this isn't working for any of us.
I would love to do that. That's such a good idea.
I hope that's planted a seed because I would listen. I would listen. Because I've listened to so many different podcasts, but I'd love to have that kind of dynamic. I'd love to be able to hear it because
even I have someone in mind.
Amazing. Well, I'd be your first listener, and I know there'd be hundreds, especially because since COVID, the homeschooling has just risen. Because teachers are leaving because it's like we said, it's too much. This was never what they're dealing with is way past their job description, way past it. And even for principals, it's way past theirs, and it's too much for everybody. So I think something like that, where we start the conversation, we hear from the inside from these human beings, what the impact of this system is having on them is just so powerful, and like, I have so much empathy and compassion for everybody in that system, and I'm like, we get to change it by having these conversations and being honest about the first step is it's not working for me. And that's really hard to say that in a world that is like, no, this is the system that you go through. But if we have parents, teachers, principals all saying it's not working for me either, it's like, okay, great, I'm not alone. Maybe then we can start to shift and decide on a new way forward,
Well, there is options. That's the thing.
So many options.
There are literally other countries. When you look at the Netherlands, when you look at Finland, when you look at Sweden, like there's some countries out there that are doing phenomenal things with their education system. They reformed usually in like the 70s. Yeah. But I did a lot of research into this and I thought, why are we following systems that don't work? We follow like UK, America. We're all not doing well statistically in any way, shape or form.
Yeah, on any level. Exactly.
Any levels. Like our numeracy and literacy has actually gone backwards, and Australian students are more likely to be bullied than most of the other OECD nations, which to me is like, what? More likely to be bullied. So that, it has a very big impact on so much more than their grades. And I think if we just followed somewhere like Finland, the answers are there. They're the most, in terms of well-being, Dutch kids are actually the happiest in the world. They've, on these big world stages, Dutch kids usually come out as the happiest in the world. And when you look at the difference between the Dutch education system and our education system, it's is like day and night. It is, we are doing the complete opposite of what would help our kids to be happier. Yes. And so I think, well, all of the research is there. Why aren't we doing it?
Why aren't we doing it? And it's like, it's not even helping, because I know the school system's based on, that originally they did it for factory workers and, literally working. But if you ask workforces, I would say that the system's not working for them anymore either. No. Because like people apply, like get a job and then they hate it, they leave. Like they can't keep staff. So like it's not working anymore because it's not even working for whatever its end outcome or result was in the beginning, but we're still just doing the same thing. It's literally insanity, isn't it? It's a definition of insanity, like doing the same thing, expecting a different result, even though it's not getting us what we want. And I think it's these conversations and like the articles you've written that are going to make the changes. And like you said, there are infinite possibilities. There are so many ways we can do this. We're acting like there's one or two ways, and fear does that. It literally closes down all options. It's crazy. Just because we've never done it that way before. Okay, well, that doesn't
Good.
mean, yeah, like let's get excited about the
Something new.
unknown. Yeah, let's get
Yeah.
excited about opportunities, and
Yeah.
like you said, we're not doing well on any level. Like anxiety, depression, like
Mm.
all of that is frightening, like frightening
Yeah.
levels. So
Yeah.
like we have to act. Like the prevention is the key, and the school system is literally the place to start. It's obviously we need to do it in our homes, but definitely the school system could
Mm.
support that. And
Mm.
yeah, I'm excited for that podcast. So I'm going to wait listening to that.
Oh,
I'm
that's
going to
such
be
a good idea,
hanging on
isn't
my
it? And
chair.
yeah, it's funny. Like, I know we could talk for hours and I won't go into it, but it's just as you're talking, I'm thinking, yeah. And then we send these kids to university, and I've been there, mate. It is no better. It is a
Yes.
joke. It is a shambles. It is a money making thing where,
Yes.
so to me, and I've been on both sides of the, like, like I said at the beginning, I love learning. I would study a
Yes.
degree every single year until the day I die. I really would. I
Yes.
just, because I love learning. But sometimes I think, you know what? Life taught me way more than those degrees did. And I walked out of my first degree. I went into the first day at the law firm with my fancy degree. I didn't know what I was doing. I had been taught nothing practical. It was all this, again, irrelevant stuff
Irrelevant.
taught by people who hadn't been in there for so long. And I
That's what
thought,
blows my mind. I'm like,
oh,
that is what really does blow my mind about like university and things like that. Learning from someone who's not even doing what they're teaching, that actually I feel like is really frightening. Like
mm,
you wouldn't go to someone who was a doctor, but they did their education like 10 years ago,
yeah,
and they're a doctor, so they're like, oh, just come to my house and I'll do the procedure. You wouldn't do that.
yeah, yeah.
You would be like,
It's
that's probably not safe,
it's really scary. Yeah.
but we societally, like you said, we think it's, oh yeah, 50 grand on a degree. You'll end up, it's like it'll set you up for life. You'll know everything you need to know. No, you literally leave and you don't know anything practically.
No.
And you're not guaranteed these days to even have a job
No,
because
for
the
me, it
landscape.
guaranteed a fun time. It guaranteed a lot of partying. It
Yeah.
guaranteed a lot of opportunity for travel. And yes, because of uni, I had opportunities to travel. I had good people skills, organizational skills. I learned
Yes.
how to study. I learned how to set a goal and achieve it. I
Yes.
certainly didn't learn a lot that was, even now people say to me, gosh, how did your business grow so fast? What did you do at uni? And I'm like, don't think that this business has anything to do with the degrees, because it's not. It's not at all.
Yes.
It's just having a little bit of like thirst for figuring things
Yes.
out.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, working with people who have done it before you, getting
Mm,
that fast track, getting the
yeah.
shortcut.
Yeah.
They've actually been in the trenches. They're still doing the work. So
Mm,
they actually can relate to what you're
mm,
saying. It's not like
mm,
some far away place that they once experienced, like,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
once read about in a book. They actually went through it. So they
Yeah. They're
get it.
embodying. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you
Yeah.
can learn from it. And I think, yeah, I love learning from people. I really believe people become people through other people. Like that's how
Yeah.
we become who we are. Like I
Yeah.
love books and I read books and everything like that. I do courses, but like you, I'm
Mm,
like, I
mm,
want to speak to that person who's done that. I want to
yeah.
learn from them. I want to get
Mm,
around them because
mm,
then I know I can do it. If you can do it, then I can do it too.
mm,
Like,
mm.
whereas if I'm in a classroom staring at a board, you know, I'm literally just like, why am I even here? Where is this
Yeah.
going? Like,
Yeah.
there's no, like we said, creativity, imagination, there's no life.
Mm,
Yeah, it's lacking everything that we need to actually make a change, not just for
yeah.
ourselves, but for each other, for our families, and for the world, which is
Yeah.
just so needed right now.
Oh,
Oh
so
my God, I could
much.
literally talk to you forever, but I feel like we've covered everything. Um,
We just went on a big
yeah,
educational rant. That
yeah,
was
and I
sorry,
knew that.
guys,
No,
but
I knew
not
that was
sorry
going to happen.
also.
Not sorry at all, because
Not sorry. It needs
literally,
to be said.
yeah. And I literally, when I was like, I'm talking to Bree, like, oh, I could talk about all this other stuff, and I was like, literally, the first topic I put on there was like homeschooling and
Ah,
school education.
yeah.
I really wanted to talk about that because selfishly, that's where I'm
Mm,
at the moment. But I don't believe I'm the only
yeah.
person. I know
Well,
I'm
can
not
I
the only
add
one.
something really quickly that
Yeah.
might actually help? It might be a relief to you. And it was a very interesting conversation I had with my fiance, and we have conversations about when we have kids, what sort of school would we send them to? Like, what do you think? I've always been, quote, hippie, because I'm like, oh, Montessori, Steiner, like homeschool,
Yes.
anything where, and he's like, no, he's very like, no, because they need to be able to, like, he thought, no, mainstream, because they need to still be able to exist in a world where it is, la, la, la.
That's
Yeah.
100% what
And I
I
agree with,
thought.
yeah, I was
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
no, that's fair. I understand. And, and so we always went back and forth, and I was sort of like, okay, well, what would we do? And then one night when I was still a teacher, I had drinks at my house with all of my teacher colleagues, because we were very close. And that's the other thing. You go for a night out with a group of teachers and you'll find all they're doing is talking about their students. We just would
Yes.
be like so excited. Did you know so-and-so is turning 18 and this one
Oh,
just got into uni? And all we do is talk about our kids. Like, we still do. I still see them all the time. But we were all sitting on the balcony having a drink, and we had 5 teachers there, and my partner walked in for this conversation. It was so interesting. I said to my friends, like, when you have kids, what do you think you'll do about like sending them to school? And every single one of the teachers, they're all teachers, they've worked in the system. Every one of them said, probably like not the mainstream way. And that was, and
wow.
yeah, my fiance walked away and was like, wow,
Wow.
I needed to hear that from 5 teachers. It's like,
Yes.
I asked a midwife recently, what would you do if you were to have a birth? And she said, look, I'm a midwife, and I'd probably go home birth, or like I'd really try to figure out ways. It's just very
Yes.
interesting. And I
It
remember
is.
my partner said, well, I'm
Oh,
glad I got to hear that from 5 teachers that all said the same
yes.
thing.
I love that. And
Mm.
I know when I messaged you and you said that like you were like celebrating me for homeschooling. I really needed that message that day. I was like,
Yeah.
thank you so much, because
Yeah.
I needed this confirmation today, because I'd had
Mm.
a few of those, people going, oh, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, because I had the same thought
Mm.
as your fiance that, okay, I fully, like you at heart, I'm like, we like a hippie, or just
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I don't even know if hippie is the right word, but just
Yeah.
connected to my soul, and that we don't necessarily have to just
Mm.
fit into the world. I actually think we're meant to stand out.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
we weren't born to fit in. We're
Yeah.
actually born to stand out in our
Yeah.
own way. But
Yeah.
like the whole world is telling us we have to fit in, and
Yeah.
it's a real struggle.
Mm.
And so, like you, I was like, and like your fiance, I was like, well, okay, I want them to be themselves, but they need to somehow function in this world. So how do we do that? And
Mm.
I remember saying to my husband, because my husband hated school, and so that was something I was very aware of. If I had a boy, I wanted to be more like compassionate and caring
Mm.
towards the experience of school. And I know
Yeah.
you said particularly for boys,
Oh, yeah.
it's not very
No,
supportive system for them, because
I really feel for boys.
yeah, they develop differently. I mean, I'm so blessed that I have a daughter and a son, and I can fully see that. Like, I
Yeah.
can fully attest to
Boys are jumping out of they should be jumping
totally,
out of trees still.
totally. And my son
Yeah.
100% is. He literally is always on top of something. His feet hardly
Good.
on the ground.
Good.
And what I love is, because my son is the oldest, my daughter is now really being brave. She's
Mm.
not just sitting on the sidelines. She's like,
Mm.
well, I might try climbing. And I'm like, yes, like,
Get it, girl.
yeah, be brave, because
Yeah.
I think we've done a massive disservice for boys and girls. Like girls, are not very brave. Like, you said they find it hard to dream and imagine and give things a go, because we've always had to sit still and like,
Mm.
be given permission to do something.
Mm. Mhm.
And then boys, it's like they've always been climbing and doing things, and then we're telling them they're wrong for it. And then they're trying to
Yeah.
suppress it. And they think there's something wrong with them. And my husband definitely had this experience, and he found school so hard. And
Mm.
then it really affected him as an adult. So I
Yeah.
really don't think this whole, I'm fine. I turned out fine. I've experienced it with my husband and had to help him with his healing
Totally.
journey, that it's
Yeah.
not okay. Um,
Yeah.
and so that,
Especially if you are at a young age. Sorry to just what I saw a lot with, and I don't have favorites, but I kind of, you have
yes,
kids
you
that you just
do.
like,
Yeah.
oh, you're my fuck. Oh, they're just amazing. But I really always got along with the naughty, like the naughty boys.
Yes.
They were so,
Yeah.
and I was like, you lovable thing.
Yeah, they're
They're
not
not
naughty.
naughty. And I thought like, it's especially, I never taught in primary school, but I can only imagine because I had them
Yeah.
from 7 to 12. these kids who were labeled as the naughty boys, they were so not. They were
Yeah.
so smart and so bored, and I did not
Yes.
blame them at all. I remember
Yeah.
this one. He actually lit a fire. He lit a fire in my English class playing around with batteries, and I
That
was
would be
like,
my
"That's
son.
incredible. That's
Yeah.
so
But let's put
you're
the fire out.
yeah, let's put that out because you've scared me." But also, like I said, his
Wow.
mom actually came to me at her wit's end in year 11 when he was in year 11, and she'd
Mm.
had all these like there'd been all these problems, and he was always in trouble, and he was always the naughty rogue kid that was just like trying to get out of class essentially, and jumping on walls and jumping off really high buildings. And he was such a good kid, and I loved him
Yeah.
so much. And I said, you know what? Let him leave then. Let him, I
Yeah.
said, he loves the ocean. He's so adventurous. Let him go do a scuba diving course because
Yep.
school is killing his soul, and he's going to start to think that he's a bad kid, and he is not. He has got a
Yes.
heart of gold. And anyway, she ended up pulling him out, and a few years later, he was working as a dive master on the Solomon Islands, and he was
Oh,
traveling, and
love that.
I just think poor boys, it really
Oh,
is, they get this like identity as a naughty or a dumb
yes.
person. And that
Labeled
is
like
just
so
not
early.
okay.
I have
Yeah.
been like amazed at how early we labeled them. Like
Oh,
absolutely amazed. Like when he transitioned into pre-primary, I could really see it happening. And there was a lot of boys struggling. Like my
yeah.
son was not the only boy
Yeah.
struggling. So
Yeah.
many boys struggling. And
Oh.
they were getting, the behavior management, but it was
Oh.
like, that's the surface. Like we need to go deeper. There's
Yeah.
emotional needs that are not being met. And
Yeah.
if we can meet them, but they had no time to meet them. They had no
No.
support. There's one
No.
EA, there's
Oh,
5
if
boys
you're
that need,
lucky.
if you're
Yeah.
lucky. And it's just, it's a crisis. It literally is a
Mm.
crisis for
Mm.
everybody involved. And, like people have said to me, oh, you're fortunate that you can pull your son out. Or like, I don't believe in luck. I've created that. Like
Yeah.
I said to them, honestly, that's not true. This is 360'd my life. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't see this as happening. This was not in my plan. I was
Mm.
open to, we'd looked at Steiner, we'd looked at all these different schools, we thought we'd made the right choice, like in the middle. Like we thought
Mm.
we'd gone in the middle.
Yeah.
It didn't turn out like that. I've taken the feedback, and I see my children as teachers. They're here
Mm.
to teach me as much as I'm here
Mm.
to help teach them. So
Yes.
my son has been one of my greatest teachers for going, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Can you do it another way?
Mm.
And if he didn't, tempt me or show me or communicate to me that he needed another way, I wouldn't have opened that door. And this
Mm.
is going to be a journey and experience for him, but also for me,
It's
you
so
know?
brave. It's honestly like it is a brave move
Yeah.
for you because it's not the majority of people
It's
doing it. And
not.
so
Yeah.
I just think like it's so good that you just trust your gut and trust
Yeah.
that
And
your mum knows their children, like,
100%. Yeah,
you know.
definitely. And I just think I'm just willing to learn. I'm
Yeah.
willing to open to whatever this could be.
Yeah.
Yes, it could be a challenge, but it could also be a gift. Pretty much, I
It
take
probably
the feedback from my life. Every challenge that I've overcome has been
yeah.
a gift. Something good has come out of it. Nothing in life is easy, but
Mm.
dragging your kid to school when they don't want to be there is not easy either. That's what
No.
I've said to like a few family members. Like, honestly, I don't think you understand that. Like, it was taking me 2 hours to get him to school in the morning.
Oh,
Like,
poor boy.
how is that?
Yeah.
How is that easier than me trying this option? And
Yeah.
to me, it's like, I've got to give it a go. And I've tried to make the system work. It's not working. So that's okay. I'm going to try this other way. And I just, like you, I was just like, I could see it breaking him. I could see him disconnecting from his authentic soul. And
Mm.
my two things as a parent, I know I need to keep them safe, definitely. But the
Yeah.
second thing, I feel I have a responsibility to keep them attached to their authentic soul, like
Yeah.
their authentic self. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think that's the greatest disservice we're
Mm.
doing to our kids is we're not encouraging that connection to themselves. We're not
Mm.
teaching them to trust themselves
Mm.
and use their voice. Like he knows at
Yeah.
5 that he could communicate to me, and
Mm.
not all 5-year-olds know that,
Yeah, that's
that
an
they're going to be
intelligence
heard.
that's not assessed at school. And I tell you, it's
Yeah.
the most important one in
So
my mind.
important.
Like
Me too.
emotional intelligence is
Yes,
everything. It's like these
100%.
fancy grades that we're giving kids don't mean anything. And I
Don't mean
saw this, that's
anything.
literally the year I decided to leave. I was doing a well-being program with my year 9 girls, and it was so intense and so emotional and so deep. And we would have amazing conversations. Every Wednesday we talked about, my parents are divorcing or I can't look at myself in the mirror, or I'm feeling pressured to have sex, or I cry every time I look online and I want to be like, I wish I could have Botox, like all of these
Oh
crazy
my gosh.
conversations. And I remember one day in particular, I had a few girls that were really crying. Dad has left. I feel like, they had all of these emotions coming from like, I'm not good enough for my dad to stay. And I was thinking,
Yes.
oh God, this is like, I live for these conversations though, because I don't care about the fact I'm their English teacher too. So
Yes. But
I
this
was
is the real work, isn't it?
yeah, this is
This
the
is the
real
real
work.
work
But I had also a curriculum and an
to,
assessment. I had a lot of stuff that had to be done. I had marking to do. And I remember I had about a 2-minute window where I had to be like, guys, we need to wipe up our tears just for like, we've got an assessment next lesson and we can't push back this exam. So we need to get us. And I thought, oh, far out. Like
oh,
that is not okay with me anymore. And I can't stand in the next class in English when they've just been crying to me about what's going on. What good are their grades and their analytical essays and their analysis of Shakespeare if they've got a wound for the rest of their life that says, I wasn't good enough for my dad to stay? I don't care about their grades because their grades aren't going to get them through uni with this emotional scar. And
no,
I think that to me is where, we've gone a little too far down this academic sort of
we have
pathway.
definitely.
NAPLAN like NAPLAN's in year 3 and 5 and 7 and it's just ridiculous. Like let's actually give them some tools and strategies to deal with their emotions, because then they might actually do all right in exams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's
And I
ridiculous.
hate that, like, I don't like to use the word hate, but I really do. Really, how speaking about like feelings and emotions is like, oh, wishy washy. And as if it's nothing. I'm like, it's
It's
everything.
everything. It's
Like, what do you
everything.
mean? It's
Yeah.
nothing. And I'm too busy to talk about this. And I imagine that would have been such a heartbreaking
Oh,
moment. Like,
yeah.
just, you're following what the system says is right, but in that moment, this is wrong.
Mm,
Like, there should be space for
mm,
me to be able to meet your
yeah.
emotional needs here, because if we
Yeah.
can do that, then you can do everything else. And
Yeah.
if you didn't take even that time that you did, they're the girls who become women who
Mhm.
have so much suppressed emotion,
Yeah.
who never speak up, who then end up in these terrible relationships and end up,
And don't even, they won't go to uni because they'll have this story that they're not good enough. Like,
yeah,
so it
it's,
does. And I feel like I really do feel for teachers that it's so
oh,
hard
so do
because,
I.
sometimes you probably could push back an assessment, but guess who has to like work all weekend to,
To deal
it's
with it.
just a
Yeah.
really tough one. And there's so many amazing teachers, parents. There's so many beautiful parents out there too. And everyone, like you said, everyone's trying to fix it for the greater good. And we've
Yeah.
got these people who have never been teachers that are sitting in their offices as like education
Yeah.
ministers and things. And it's so
They have no idea.
disconnected. No
Literally no
idea.
idea.
So,
And we're
yeah.
not robots, we're people,
Yeah.
and like, if COVID has taught us anything, it's like we said, bring back the humanity, bring
Yeah.
back the connection of like human to human, and
Mm.
we can work it out together.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big challenge.
Yeah.
But if we all, if parents, teachers, principals, if we all come together, there's a solution
Yeah.
that can work for everybody. But it
Yeah.
starts with these conversations. So
Mm.
oh my God, thank you so much, Bree. I've
No
absolutely
problem.
loved this conversation. I feel like it's filled my cup. It's helped me know that I'm in the right place and I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. And I hope that I know
Yes.
that our listeners have pulled what they needed from this and that it's helped them also. And yeah, I love the work you do, Bree. Bree's got an
Thank
amazing
you.
program, Lull, Level Up Your Life. I'm going to put the link to all Bree's podcast and that amazing program you run in the comments. But listen to Bree's message, listen to her podcast. This is only one snippet of her message. She's got a really big, powerful message, and listen to the podcast because you'll love it. You'll be addicted like I am. And just thank you so much for being here, beautiful. I've loved this.
Thank you. I feel we could do a Joe Rogan
Literally
style
talk forever.
4-hour podcast.
We really
I think we've
could.
got-
Yeah.
Yeah. Listeners are like, please stop talking.
I'm like, I wish I was in Perth because I'm in
Yeah.
Busselton. I'm like, I'd just literally come and hang out with
Oh,
you.
Busselton's on my list, actually. We've just put it, we want to go for a ride and just have a little bit of an explore.
If
So I'll let you know.
Oh my God, let me know if you're coming
Yeah.
down. Adam's parents recently come down. They've got electric bikes.
Oh,
And
love it.
they were like, they were riding every day. They were like, can you guys keep a lookout for like a rental property down there? Because the paths down there are amazing for bikes.
Okay.
it's a
there
good
we go. We will be there and I will hit you up. We will have coffee that
Yes.
lasts 10 hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, you'll get a little bit of writing in, but
I'll see how you're going with the homeschooling too.
yes. Oh no, we'll have breaks. Even today, I did some homeschooling this morning and then we just went for a massive ride. And, I was like,
Perfect.
I've got this.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, I reckon you could probably get away with 2 hours of solid, productive study time with him. And the
Yes.
rest, that's probably all they're doing at
And
school,
that's
really.
pretty much what I've been doing. Like,
Yeah.
I've got one kid, not 20. Like,
Yeah.
that's how I keep like doing the ratio.
Yeah,
Like, to help
exactly.
me,
We've got 30 and no help. So
Yeah,
he'll be
exactly.
thriving. I bet
Yeah.
he'll be thriving.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, I've
Mm.
just loved this so much. You're
Me too.
amazing. And I'm definitely going to keep in touch. Please let me know when you're
Yeah.
down in Boston. I would love to
Oh, I
catch up
will.
with you.
I will.
And yeah, I'm sending you so much love and so much
Same.
gratitude.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an awesome chat.
You're so welcome.
All right.
Oh, thank
Bye.
you. Beautiful.